Organize your home? Change your life? What?
Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Dupree, scouring the globe to bring you stories of courage, passion, and resilience. If I could sum up this podcast into one word, I would use empathy. Now let's get inspired.
Hello and welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I am your host once again, Brett Dupree, here to drop some spiritual knowledge on you. Today we're talking to Prominski, who is an organizer. So if you're ready to organize your life, now is the time to do it. And since you're stuck inside, it might be a good time. But first, I must become vulnerable in my life, about my life, because if I'm not vulnerable, how can I expect my guest to be? Today, I am doing this part on April 27th, and the reason why I tell you this, of course, is because of the NFL draft happened last week. And yes, the NFL draft, and as a Miami Dolphin fan, I am pumped for Tua Tagovailoa to be drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And what this weekend showed me is that I've been making a mistake that I kind of preach other people not to make. But one thing about being a life coach, doing this for a living, is the fact that a lot of times the things you teach yourself are the things you need to do. For some reason, as I came to work this morning, I felt revived. I felt refreshed. I thought it was because I took the Friday off of work because I had to take my car in to get its oil changed. But then I thought about it. What did I do this weekend? What did I place my mind on this weekend? What was I focusing on this weekend? Well, my friends, the thing I was focusing on was the NFL draft. I was expecting a clown car of calamity when I was watching, but they not only did a good job with this all virtual draft due to this COVID-19 situation that we are in, they did great. Other than trying to mention every sob story for every draft, which you didn't need to know that 10 years ago the dude's uncle died. I mean, yes, it's tragic when family members die and it sucks, and I understand they were trying to say this person worked hard and been through a lot. But for every person, especially like the wide receiver out of Alabama, they put like, mother was a drug addict. I'm like, recovered from drug addiction or whatever. It's like, we don't need to know that. This is their greatest day of their life. We don't need to know their tragic backstory. It's not like every person who's in the draft is Batman. But other than that, the draft was amazing. It was as a football fan, what I liked the most, which is just analysis, especially on the third day. A lot of times the third day is just nothing but random people announcing picks, like people who win contests or people from the community doing not that good of a job. And each one of them, of course, is their one time to go on television, so they talk way too freaking long and take too long, and that just takes time out, and they don't get to talk about each pick. And on the third day, I think they need to talk about each pick more, because most of us don't know who these players are or why we should even be excited about why they're drafted or who they are as a player. And so just seeing their name, and so this year, because they didn't have time to do that, I was able to see that. And also, being a Dolphin fan, we had a lot of picks. We went in this draft with 14. I think we came out with 10 or 11. Forgot the number. But at the same time, it was just excited from top to bottom. In fact, the Tua Tagovailoa thing, I don't need to go on because it's not a sports podcast, but the excitement of it, the fact that everything went exactly perfect for Miami to get him at number 5 was just electrifying. And all of Thursday, that was when it was Thursday, in fact, I could not sleep. It took me until like 2-something to even get relaxed enough to sleep. I was so worn out on Friday morning, and I was just because I didn't get any sleep. I was really happy I took that day off. But this is not about that. This is about focus. And one thing I noticed is that I wasn't worrying so much about the world and everything that is happening. I wasn't spending every day reading every article, refreshing BuzzFeed News, Vox, Slate, Salone, reading Twitter, going on to Worldometer and seeing how many people have died, how many people are affected, reading about copious news. I wasn't just focusing it all the time. And I'm not saying that I shouldn't remain vigilant, that I shouldn't remain informed. It's important for people to become informed in this situation, take on various news, and try to come up with some semblance of the reality of what is going on. But when you're getting to the point where that's all you think about and focusing on something you can't control, and there's not much you can actually do about it, is just not helpful. And I could notice that after this weekend, it's almost like a weight has been lifted on me, because I just one weekend, just 3 days I just spent, or 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And instead of focusing on the world's lamest apocalypse, I mean, it's not zombies or aliens or a flesh-eating bacteria. It's just a bacteria that gets a small-ish part of the population sick, but since it's only a smallish population, a lot of people are able to get through it fine. It's actually the perfect contagion for it to do a lot of damage for a long period of time, because people don't take it seriously enough, but to get down that rabbit hole. But instead of focusing on this apocalypse, the coronavirus, COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, I was focusing on the NFL. And so it's just nice to focus on something else and put my energy into something else, and to debate about something else, and to truly embrace that. And it just kind of broke it open. And so basically what I'm saying is, yes, it is important to be informed, but sometimes just need a reminder not to jump down the rabbit hole of despair and getting to the point where all you're doing is focusing on this thing. In fact, that's how people get stuck in conspiracy theories, as you get so afraid, and all of a sudden all that information just is hard to deal with. I know during this COVID-19, I've lost a lot of friends on Facebook, but to be honest, they weren't that close of friends anyway. I have like 1,000 something friends, and most of them I have no idea who they are. But what I'm saying is, worry is a useless emotion. Concern is fine. Being for somebody is fine. But recognizing the fact that you're becoming obsessed with something that you have little to no control over, and just feeling that fear of it to the point where it consumes you, can be dangerous and a problem. And for me, as I have just this perspective, because I was able to break away, I was looking too much into it. But at the same time, it is fascinating. This has never happened in my lifetime. Last time we've had a global pandemic, a true global pandemic. I mean, swine flu, H1N1. Apparently it's still around, by the way. We just know how to handle it. It's still just part of the flu season. But that one spread to a lot of people and killed a small amount of them. That one's kind of a yearly thing, but not a worldwide thing, but this is a worldwide thing that just blows that one away. It blows the flu away. It blows any worldwide contagion away since the Spanish flu of 1918, or the flu of 1918, I should say, which is worse than this one. Look up the flu of 1918 if you want to scare yourself. That one is phenomenally deadly. It is crazy. It's just a very, very bad flu. It's actually when we're having a good immune system, increased your chance of death most likely. But anyway, this is the podcast. This is all about where your focus goes, your energy flows. And you put your energy towards fear, you can cycle down fear. Yes, you want to remain informed. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is not bad. But if you allow yourself to be consumed by fear, that is a problem. Just like any emotion. If you allow yourself to be consumed by sadness, grief are not a problem. They allow you to process when bad things are happening. But when you allow yourself to be cycled in them, that's a problem. Even joy. Being just obsessed with joy can allow you to not deal with things in your life and get you into a cycle of joy chasing or or thrill seeking, looking for that rush. So anytime you dive into an emotion to the point of just making that just an overindulgence of that emotion, you can become trapped in it. I was trapped in fear and worry, and I see that now. I will be working on just checking sometimes, but not getting so focused on it, because honestly, other than staying home, there's nothing much I can do about it. But one thing I can do when I am stuck at home is organize my home. Jean Prominski, she is a certified professional organizer and an artist. She's an author of Color To Declutter. Jean specializes in helping people with ADHD get organized and stay organized. She has a Master of Fine Arts in Rhode Island School of Design, a Level 4 teacher-trained Reiki practitioner, health coaching certification through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and the Health Coach Institute. Is a certified professional organizer through the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals and holds additional certificates through the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. She is the founder of Seattle Sparkle. So now here is my interview with Jean Prominski. Hello, Jean, and welcome to my podcast.
Hi, Brett. Thanks so much for having me.
I am excited to have you. For listeners at home, Jean is a fellow Toastmaster, and she does organization, I believe,
Yep.
helping people declutter.
Yes, I do.
How did you get into that?
Well, I have always loved organizing stuff and cleaning, yet I haven't always been completely organized myself. I like to pride myself in being prepared for things, but I've definitely had to teach myself some of the organizing things. I have ADHD. It's kind of part of the wiring of my brain to potentially be a little disorganized, but I found ways to cope with it pretty early on. I moved to, how did I get into it? Where do you want me to start? Thinking about when I was a little kid, I loved horses and cleaning all the grooming horses and doing everything with horses. And I think that's really one of the very early places where I got into organization. Then I went to college for architecture and I wanted to create healing homes for people. And I knew that I wanted to do something about homes. I thought it was building them from the ground up. I remember going to my grandmother's house and just loving the feeling of it. And so, how do I do this? I was very into art. I found glass blowing when I was about 19 or 20, ended up switching my major, graduated with a bachelor's in crafts, did a lot of glass blowing, moved out to Seattle to work as a glass blower. And I did a lot of organizing at the jobs that I worked at, got my grad degree and then in glass, and then moved to California. I was working at an art school there, doing organizing and talking about art. I really wanted to work more with people, have my own business. When I moved up to Seattle, that process of moving from California to Seattle, also lived in some other states, moving around the country was part of what really influenced me to want to become a professional organizer.
Working at many jobs and being the person that organized everything got you to just realize that, wow, I like organizing things. I should do this for a living.
Yeah, well, some magic in it. I guess it's kind of a Marie Kondo thing, the magic art of tidying up. I really found that there was a huge impact on a person's health when they could organize their home or when they lived in an organized home. And I liked the reciprocal effect of when you're in an organized space. Actually, when I was living in Providence, going to grad school, I think a lot about Seattle and how much I loved Pacific Northwest, especially going to the locks and feeling the energy of the space, the negative ions, and just being in a place where the atmosphere really affected my senses. That has influenced a lot of my art for my whole life. I was very, very interested in how the surroundings, our atmosphere, the temperature, the light, the humidity, the visual qualities, everything influenced our physical and mental health.
It makes sense going through what we're going through right now with the whole COVID-19 thing. For the people listening to this in the future, I took the time to actually organize my apartment and finally unpack everything. And after that, there's just, just a nice feeling after being done, and just the whole space just feels better, and I can feel it uplift my mood. So I could see that just in my life, and I'm sure it'd been better if I had a professional help me.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to hear that. I'm proud of you. Good job, Brett. I've been seeing on Facebook people posting things like, oh, I thought I didn't have time. I thought my place was messy because I didn't have time, and now I know why. And I'm not exactly sure what they meant by that post, but it can be kind of complicated to do. There's a lot of emotional things that get wrapped up into our belongings, and there's reasons why we leave a pile of paper where we do for as long as we do. Sometimes there are boxes of photos, but I'm glad to hear that you were successful. Congratulations.
Thank you. So what are some of the struggles that comes with starting an organization business?
When I was researching becoming a professional organizer, I called as many organizers that I knew, and I was living in Sonoma, California at the time. Not as many organizers as I knew. I just called as many organizers as I could find online. And all the good ones pointed me to NAPO, National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. At that time, it was called National Association of Professional Organizers. It's a little bit more of a tongue twister now. NAPO has been around since, I believe, 1994, the early mid-90s, and it is a group of professional organizers, and their mission is to help educate people about organizing and growing a business. And there's lots of classes about mental health, about some of the reasons why people get into the places that they do with clutter, but there's also a lot of really good classes about how to start a business. When I first started, I met this woman, joined NAPO. There's a regional conference in San Francisco. I went to that conference, and I just, right when I got there, I was like, these are my people. This is amazing. And I got so inspired about how to start a business, got a lot of really good tips. I've read books. I have not gone to business school. I've taken some classes about, when I was in coaching school, about how to run a business and start a business and market myself. That's been helpful. What is it like? Being part of a business, especially being a professional organizer. I also do coaching, and the community around the professional organizers have created has been so supportive. I was talking to, especially since this COVID-19 thing has happened, I don't want to go into other people's homes. I want to keep all my clients safe. I don't want to pass germs around, and I just want to respect the wishes of our leaders. I haven't been going to other people's homes. Whether or not my business is essential, I think is kind of a gray area, because I do help people in their homes. It's very much a health issue if your home is cluttered. It can also be a mental health issue, but I've chosen not to go into people's homes right now. So I'm just offering virtual organizing, meeting with clients over the internet. So we'll use Skype or Zoom. I can see into their spaces and we can talk about what their needs are. But especially through this, having that group of professional organizers that I can talk to, we all have our own businesses. We're all essentially competitors, yet it has just felt so supportive. So that's been a huge help to me, being part of that group.
Looking over the information you sent me, one thing that really stood out to me is the working on the wheel of life as well as decluttering. This seems to be a whole person approach to decluttering a home. What's the benefit of that, or how that works?
My wheel of life is broken up into 5 different parts. There's career, health, finances, relationships, and spirituality. And then within each of those, there's 5 more segments. My belief is that when your wheel of life is balanced and round and even and can roll, then you're more likely to be in the right place at the right time. And if it's not round and fluffy and smooth, if there's flat spots, if your wheel is lumpy, you are more likely to experience a lot more challenges. And this could show up in your home. So it's almost like your home is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So I like to weave in elements of the wheel of life as we are working on the home, because if there's trouble in your relationships, it's going to show in the home, and you're not going to be able to solve organizational issues with physical clutter stuff in your house if there's major issues going on in one of those other areas.
So it says here that you are a Reiki 4 practitioner. How does energy healing help you with, or how does that coincide with helping people declutter?
Sometimes I bring it up with my clients and sometimes I don't. Depends on what their interests are, but it can be very, very clearing to a home. I've also been trained in a lot of other house clearings and other ways of working with spiritual elements to blow out the stuck, heavy, negative energy, or the energy negative is one of those words that kind of use, but it can be a little bit confusing. So the energy that was at once very helpful and is no longer helpful, I can help people clear that out and then bring in energy that is more supportive for them at this time.
What's your apprehension with bringing it up with other customers?
Oh, I think there's some people that are very scientific and they don't like to talk about any of the spirituality stuff. And I don't want to be, I want to support my clients' beliefs and I don't want to, and so I don't want to cause, spirituality can be one of those things that's very complicated with people. A lot of people have grown up in a way that spirituality has, they've had really a difficult time with it, or they have very specific beliefs and might think that this type of spirituality is not going to be helpful for them.
That makes sense. You have to kind of just gauge and serve the client from where they are.
Yes. Thank you.
So congratulations on publishing a book for kids called Color To Declutter. Ooh, but I said that poorly. Color To Declutter.
Thank you. Well, it's actually for adults or kids, really. I've colored all of them. It's really fun. So I've got one of my friends just texted me. He just got a whole set of Prismacolors offline and has been coloring. He's really excited about it. The coloring book is about helping people color to declutter. So instead of tackling the clutter issue head on, I am proposing the idea that by coloring, you're essentially rewiring your brain to make it easier to organize. It just comes naturally. Your brain becomes more organized because you're coloring, and so it will automatically get reflected in your surroundings. So because your brain is more organized, your body will just naturally want to organize things around you. So do you want me to talk about the different ways that it does that?
Sure. That sounds like fun.
Okay. Coloring brings confidence to the decision-making process. Coloring harmonizes the mind. Coloring is rewarding. It delivers internal balance. It strengthens your boundaries and identity. It promotes self-contentment, and it's relaxing. All of those things will help your brain be primed to be able to declutter easier. You'll get more quiet time away from screens, get better sleep. It promotes a sense of self-attunement, which is something that I could potentially talk about for longer, but we should save that for another podcast. But the other thing about this book is I actually was really excited. So have you heard of Dr. Emoto? Masaru Emoto? Yeah. Okay, the snowflake guy. He is no longer alive, but he did all these studies on water crystals. So he would fill up a jar of water and freeze it, then look at it under a microscope. And if it had the word love on the outside, the crystal structure was very intricate and symmetrical. And then if it had words like hate on the outside, the ice crystals would look all lumpy and might be malformed or have broken pieces. I love this idea. And with all the ice crystals or snowflakes in my coloring book, I've put words with them to represent there's good and paradise and bright and happy and radiant. I'm asking the readers to meditate on that word as they're coloring. But I also like to think about it as our clutter, the objects that are around us. What words are those saying, and how is that imprinting on our body? Because our body is water, it's made up of a large percentage of water. If there's a pile of papers from some angry person on the desk, that is sending messages of anger towards you, or books of war or other violent pictures. And it's not that violent pictures are necessarily bad, but it's just, it may be resonating with you in a helpful way and it may not. So one of the things that Emoto did do a study on was classical music, and then I don't know what was the other kind of music. Maybe I want to say death metal or something like that. And I like music that's not, I don't necessarily like classical music, and I don't know if the music that I would listen to would necessarily make the ice crystals that Emoto was studying have brilliant patterns. But the really cool thing, so does that make sense about the clutter and the patterns in your body?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of a cool thing, is I had a graphic designer help me lay out the words in the coloring book. There's like 5 pages of text in here. And I was talking about Emoto, and he's like, Jean, you have to get you have to put this picture of Dr. Emoto in your book. I'm like, no, how am I going to get the rights to put this picture of Dr. Emoto in my book? He's not alive. He is Japanese. Like, no, that's gonna be way too hard. And I want to get this thing printed soon, not in like 10 years. So I told him no. And I was like, maybe this wouldn't be so hard. So I Googled it. I found a phone number. I looked at my watch and I was like, okay, what time is it in Tokyo? It's like noon. And I just got on Skype and called this number. Do you speak English? I explained what I wanted. I explained what I was trying to do. The woman that answered the phone understood me. I didn't have to repeat myself at all. She understood me. She was like, well, Hiro's here. Now let me transfer you to him. And so I explained my whole thing to him. Again, did not have to repeat myself, which with most of Americans, I always have to repeat myself. So I was very impressed, even though I've been in Toastmasters. He's like, send me your text. Let me see what you're doing. And we have these pictures and I can send you one. So he looked at the text. He said, okay, this looks great. Here's the photo. You can pick out what you want. And then later when he signed the email, I found out it was Dr. Emoto's son. And I just thought that was so cool. So it was like so easy just to call Japan from my living room, talk to Dr. Emoto's son on my computer. It's just amazing. So I was excited about that.
That's a great story. I love it.
Thank you.
So you talk about working with people virtually, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but you did send an email at least. Talk about something called body doubling. Can you explain that to the listeners?
Yes, because we are in the COVID-19 and not really supposed to go out. I've always done coaching, but I've started doing virtual organizing where I am at home talking to someone through my computer. They're at their house. I can see what's going on at their house. They have Zoom on so I can see what's going on, and I can either talk to them about their space, give them recommendations, and give them assignments, suggestions. And sometimes people like to start organizing when we're on the phone together. Sometimes when we're doing that, I can be talking to them. They might be asking me questions and things. But one of the major things that comes up, and it comes up when I'm at someone's house too, is the concept of body doubling. So this is something that people with chronic disorganizations, they've had a long time where they've been disorganized despite efforts to try to get help or help themselves. It's just been an ongoing problem. It can be really helpful to have someone sitting with them while they are doing the organizing. We were talking about empathy earlier. So this is something where I can really just sit with my clients. And it's something that clients don't necessarily, at first, they're like, I feel weird. I feel like I'm wasting your time. Like you should be doing something. But the thing is, a lot of times when we get our friends or family to help us organize something, they want to be doing something. They want to be productive. They want to be helpful, or they might have some agenda. They could be shaming or blaming. There could be other passive aggressive things going on. With the body doubling, it's a very neutral state where I would just simply be there with the person, attentive to what they're needing, but not like, here, give me something else to do. Give me something else to do, because that can be really annoying. And it can also be really stressful for the person. It can be kind of a burden. So this is something where I'm really focused my attention on the person that I'm helping organize in a gentle, kind of supportive way. And the benefit of that, it affects their neuroplasticity, the way that their brain works. They might not be so used to someone paying attention to them. And so the more practice that they get with someone, or the more experience, the more repetition that they have with someone paying close, attuned attention to them, they start to recognize it and appreciate it and allow it in more often. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So during all your times of organizing and helping people, what have been some of your favorite success stories?
Oh my gosh, we have so much fun. I love my job so much. And I'm pretty physical, so I like to work out and make sure that I stay pretty strong. And I think because of that, I'm more willing to do stuff that maybe some other organizers might not do. But just remember, there was someone who so one of the things about being a professional organizer is that everything is confidential, and I'm it's part of our code of ethics. So that's why when you look at my Facebook page or my website or Instagram, I very rarely will post pictures of someone else's space. And I only do it when they ask me to, when they say, oh, let's post this. Or I might ask them, this is a really good picture. Is it okay if we post it? But I would never post something without asking. And I almost rarely even do ask. I'm going to have to skew a few of the details in the story because I don't want anyone to be identified. But I got over to someone's house and she lost something very important. Let's just say it was
a brooch.
A brooch. Thank you. Yeah. Or wedding ring. It was a brooch. And I got there and our session was 3 hours. And she's like, my goal for today is to find this brooch. And so she's like, I think it's over here in this area, but I'm not totally sure. I've looked there a few times. That area had a lot of mail and some craft supplies and just some collections of things. So there's already a lot going on. But that's pretty common. So we were looking there. We still couldn't find it. It was almost the end of the session. We'd almost spent 3 hours looking for this brooch. She's like, you know what? I think it fell under the couch cushions. So we pulled the couch cushions off. We still couldn't find it. We got a flashlight and we could see that it was under the couch. So we turned the couch over and it was all fabric underneath. So this brooch fell into the couch. So we had to use scissors to cut it out to get it out. But that was like one of those things was like, so I have a Jack Russell and she is kind of my spirit animal. So when she sees or smells something, rabbits or rodents or a chicken bone or whatever, she can be very, very tenacious is the word. She's like, I gotta get that. And I can be like that. If someone has lost something, I'm like, I can find that for you. So I love to find things. That's one of my successes is helping people find things. Long lost items.
Nice. That sounds very helpful. So we're coming to the end of our time together. And one thing I like to ask my guests is to do a 1 minute of motivation. You can imagine this as if you have a time machine and you're going back to your 8-year-old self and you have to convey a message to them so they can set their lives right. But unfortunately, in a minute later, you are sent back into the future. Or you can think of it as condensing your entire life message into a minute. So are you ready?
You're doing good. You're doing great. So this is something that I got from my dog training, one of the dog training classes that I did at Ahimsa in Ballard, where it's all about positive reinforcement. They really like to praise the dogs for the good things that they're doing. And so I will catch myself saying, good job to my dog all the time for things that a normal person would probably just be like, that's a normal thing for a dog to do. Like, why are you praising it? And I think that's what happens with us as humans is we do a good job on things and we don't notice it. The more that I say good job to my dog or good job to other people around me, I've noticed that it has changed the way I talk to myself, and I will recognize when I've done a good job more often. So that's what I recommend.
Thank you, Jean, for coming on my podcast. I really enjoyed listening to your story on how you got into organizing and your interesting way of looking at it from a holistic approach. I generally think of organizing as someone coming in and saying, move this here, but the idea of having a holistic approach where not only are you organizing the room around you, but that's like a representation of who you are. Thus, organize your home, organize your life kind of idea is a very interesting way of looking at it, and just the freeing of the energy and helping people recognize that fact so that they can live a more organized life so they can be more successful out in the world. So thank you so much for everything that you do, and thank you so much for being on my podcast, and thank you for making this world a better place.
Thank you, Brett.
May your day be special.
Thank you.
And there you have it, folks. That is my interview with Jean Prominski. I really enjoyed listening to her talk. One thing I always enjoy is listening to the balance of people who do the woo-woo things that are not in a woo-woo type environment. Organizing your home the way she does isn't not necessarily one where you think you can put in Reiki and things of that nature and come from it from a kind of like spiritual metaphysical side. but it's all about serving the client and coming to where they are. For some people, adding that is helpful, and for other people, it isn't. But I also like the idea of having a full all-encompassing treatment when it comes to organizing your home. I remember, I think it was Marianne Williamson or somebody I was listening who told somebody that you can look into somebody's car and determine where they are in your life, organize your car or get your life on track type idea. And the house is kind of like that. There's just a different energy to your house and you just feel different about yourself. At least I know I do when my house is clean and everything is organized. That chaotic feeling that happens when you first move somewhere does not, at least for me, make me feel my most productive self, my best self. And there's just something about having your house organized, putting up hooks. One thing I did in my home is I bought a lot of cabinet space and a lot of dresser space, and just putting things on dressers and shelves. Less shelves. That's a better word than dressers. I didn't actually buy any dressers. I just bought a bunch of shelves. And just putting things on shelves makes things feel better than putting them on the floor or something like that. Also, hooks. Hooks are amazing. More apartments should come with hooks, especially right by the door so you can hang your keys. I don't know why that just isn't a staple of all apartments. But yeah, so I enjoyed listening to her interview, and if you are interested in changing your life by organizing your house, you can check out Jean at seattlesparkle.com. If you want 20% off her book, Color to Declutter, use the code EXPANDJOY at checkout. She is also offering a special on her virtual organizing sessions. Go to seattlesparkle.com/home-organizing. Of course, everything will be in the doobly-doo, or not really. It's down below, whatever. Show notes. That's the word. Thanks for listening to episode 67 of the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I am your host, once again, Brett Dupree, who loves you for who you are and how awesome you are for listening to this. So if you want to email me, you can email me at BRE2Ts2PR2EAS@joyousexpansion.com. You can check out Joyous Expansion, more episodes of Pod.Joyous Expansion, like, review, do it, whatever, share. Those are all awesome things. You can find me on LinkedIn, Joyous Expansion, Facebook, Increase Your Joy, because I'm bad at SEO, because my Instagram and Twitter is also Joyous Expansion. Once again, I'm Brett Dupree, the catalyst of transformation of the Church of Awesome, champion of authentic joy, Joyous Expansion life coach, reminding you that I love you for who you are if you made it this far in my podcast, and to be love, to be joy, to be awesome. Now play my jingle.
JoyousExpansion.com JoyousExpansion.com Come and say hello to Brett Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach, good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue, I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. JoyousExpansion.com JoyousExpansion.com Yeah.